Hi everyone, welcome to another Forward College webinar. It's great to see people joining us today. My name is Joana Moreno. If you have emailed us regarding admissions or any questions about our programs, there is a very high likelihood that we have spoken before. So I will be hosting today's webinar. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes to give everyone time to join and get settled. In the meantime, just a quick note, we will have a short Q&A session at the end of our webinar today. So if along the presentation you have any questions that you'd like to ask to our fellows, or to Clarence, or even to me about admissions, feel free to write a question in the chat below, and we will go over it at the end. As a short introduction, so this webinar today will go over how Forward College approaches personal development, as in going far beyond academics. So it will go over how you develop your social, your emotional skills that will help you not only reach a good step, not only in your personal life, but also in your academic and professional life. Okay, just a few more minutes for everyone to be able to join. If you want, you can comment below where you are watching us from. And as a reminder, we are currently on our last wave of applications. So if you want to join us in the upcoming academic year, make sure to apply before the end of May. Okay, we have Philip watching from Berlin. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. All right, let's get started. Okay, so here is our lovely panel for today with our fellows and also our student ambassador, Clarence. So I will let you introduce yourselves. Aman, you can start.
Okay, thanks so much, Joanna. Hi, everyone. My name's Aman. I teach personal development in year one in Lisbon. And I've actually spent a long time in the corporate world before I came into the field of personal development and education. So I used to be, a practicing manager for about 10 years, and that's what led me to start teaching, leadership development in the corporate space. And I did that for 15 years in India before moving to Lisbon. And when I came to Lisbon, I was continuing to do leadership development and organizational transformation work. And sometime last year, Forward College and I discovered each other. And, so I've been teaching from last year onwards here. And personal development is the course I teach. I use a lot of the work that I did in the corporate space and try and bring that into the course to try and make it more relatable, real, and meaningful. And I think when my turn comes to talk in this webinar, I will share more with you and you can ask me questions later on as well.
Thank you very much, Aman. Stephanie?
Thank you, Joanna. Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to see so many of you connected today, and hello to those who are joining at a later point. So I'm Stephanie, Head of Personal Development, Wellbeing Coordinator and Fellow in Year 2 in Paris. Like my esteemed colleagues, I have quite a diverse background. After studying literature in the UK, I worked in public relations and then began a career in the world of tech at Google in UK and in France, where I stayed for almost a decade. After Google, I retrained in brief therapy, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness meditation, and joined Forward College in 2023. I'm very excited to talk to you all about our wonderful program today.
Thank you, Stephanie. Philippe?
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all of you, depending on where you're calling from. My name is Philippe Best. I serve as both Personal Development Fellow and Student Career Advisor at Forward College on the Berlin campus. I bring over 20 years experience across the world of education as a classroom teacher, as a school assessment consultant, and as a student recruitment strategist. Now I have the honor of working at Forward College with students in their third year on the verge of the next chapter of their lives. And I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about what we do in year 3 here in Berlin.
Thank you very much. And finally, last but not the least, Clarence.
Hello, everybody. My name's Clarence. I'm a second-year student here at Forward College. I'm originally from Brussels, and I'm studying business and management in double bachelor. And so I'm in Paris right now.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So now I will do a short introduction on the 4 great foundations that Forward College is built upon. So we start with world-class bachelors. We have 2 different types of bachelors here on offer. We have our very own degrees that are designed and awarded by Forward College. These are multidisciplinary degrees where you can tailor them to what you most like to learn. We currently have 3 such degrees, and the one that you can tailor the most to your preferences is the open bachelors, where you can choose majors and minors as well. And apart from these degrees, we also offer several bachelor's degrees in partnership with the University of London, meaning that these degrees are designed either by the London School of Economics or by King's College London. So by the end of the program, when you graduate, your diploma will be awarded by the University of London. Moving on to the high quality of teaching, we are very committed to having small classes in size, so at most 15 students per class. I'm going just to move on to the next slide so you can have a good idea. So these small class sizes allow for one-on-one tutoring and allow for a very close relationship, not only with your classmates, but also with the fellows. This allows for a lot of practical sessions and to a more active approach to learning, where you're not just sitting for 3 hours listening to a professor speak. You can actually take part actively in classes and debate ideas and take part in discussions. This is what we call the flipped classroom approach, where you will study a bit beforehand. So the professors will give you some contents that you can go over at home before coming to class. And then once you are at class, you will have this approach where you debate what you learned and where you can expose any questions you may have and debate with your classmates and with the fellows. So instead of having this passive learning approach, you actively debate the contents. As a result, our students have been achieving quite good results in the past few years. So this is a model that has been proving to be very, very effective. As our third foundation, we have the leadership program. So here, if you choose to enroll in a bachelor's plus or in a double bachelor's, which are two types of intensities for our programs, you will have these leadership and entrepreneurship components adding to your academic degree. So aside from actually learning and doing exams and having this academic part, you will also be able to take part in real world entrepreneurship projects and develop soft skills that will be very useful both for your academic and professional path. And finally, Forward College truly is an international college. So in your 3 years of study with us, you will go through 3 different cities in 3 different countries. You'll start in Lisbon, go on to Paris, and finally study in Berlin for your last year. And our students come from all over the world. Okay, so now I will pass over to Stephanie and we will get started with personal development.
Yes, thank you, Joanna. Okay, let's go. So what is personal development? I'm going to take some time to give you a broad overview of personal development before handing you over to Aman and Philippe, who will give you some insight into their courses in years 1 and 3. So to begin with, let me paint for you the broad brushstrokes of our exciting program. Personal development has been created and designed for people who expect more from their education. So if you're here connected now or later on, you've probably heard us say a few times by now that Forward College is committed to creating a holistic educational experience that goes beyond academic excellence. And the personal development program is living proof of that ethos. Now, you've probably also heard of something called artificial intelligence, maybe, I don't know. Yes, we've all heard of it. And of course, we are all aware of the impact and importance of artificial intelligence today. But perhaps one thing that we can also agree on is that artificial intelligence somehow falls short on being human. And that's where personal development comes in. So moving on to the next slide, I'm going to now just zoom out for a second. And Joanna already spoke a little bit about the leadership program, but I'm going to quickly detail where the personal development program sits at Forward College and within the leadership program. So once you've chosen your academic major, and then you've chosen if you want to go down the UOL Bachelor's Award route or the Forward College Degree Award route, you'll then have one last important choice to make: the format of your undergraduate degree. So this is an important choice because if you choose the double bachelor's, the bachelor's plus, or the open bachelor programs, then personal development will be open to you. So now back to why we created this innovative program. Joanna, if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So some of you might have already seen this data or something that resembles it. This specific data comes from the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, and it shows the core skills that are favored by recruiters. So what's interesting to note is that while technological and analytical skills are, of course, highly regarded, time and time again, we see that social, emotional, and practical skills make also highly regarded, and the skills that make candidates stand out from a crowd. So we know this and we see it all the time when we speak to recruiters. and when we speak to students about their experience in interviews. So what does this mean then for Forward College and for personal development specifically? Can we go? Thank you. So at Forward College, perhaps you've also heard us mention the human intelligences. So in personal development, we work on developing these core skills that are recognized by the recruiters of today and tomorrow. Skills like self-awareness, resilience, networking, communication, influence. These are the foundational skills to also the cognitive and the practical skills that you will also explore while you're at Forward College. Now, of course, all of these skills are important for the world of work, but they're also highly important for your experience while at university. So the skills that we look at and explore in personal development will help you to forge solid relationships while you're at Forward College, and will also help you to navigate your 3 years in 3 different cities, feeling empowered and confident, we hope. So the personal development program is very experiential. We do a lot of role plays, a lot of discussions, debate, and we really encourage connection in our classrooms. And all of these skills, all of these experiences will then play out into your other classes and your other project work that you will have with your peers. So going now to the specific shape of the personal development program. We look at social intelligence in year 1. We then look at emotional intelligence in year 2. And then in year 3, we move on to leadership skills. Now, we spent a long time thinking about the Forward College journey and the kind of skills that we hope our students will explore throughout their yearly journey at Forward College. And we think that this is the right way to do things. So in year 1, Aman will talk to you about the kind of skills that you explore with him in year 1, the kind of social skills that help you to work on your projects, make new friends, start to kind of network. And then by the time you come to year 2, we start to think about job interviews, how to talk about yourself, how to talk about your experiences. And so the focus in year 2 is emotional intelligence. And then by the time you've got to year 3 in Berlin, you've picked up all of these social, emotional skills, you know who you are, you know how to communicate to other people. And then the focus is really about you and your next steps in year 3. So what does a course look like in personal development? Now, the format of a personal development course is exactly the same as an academic course in that you have 2 hours in the classroom with your personal development fellow. What's slightly different is that we have a lot of role plays, games, although actually I do know that some of my academic colleagues also favour role plays. But one thing that is specific to personal development is that we have lots of guest speakers, and we also take a part of the course out onto the field, which I will talk to you a bit later about when I come to year 2. So, as I said, personal development does resemble the format, the shape of your academic courses. So we begin with the embark phase, so thinking or being exposed to learning material, and then coming prepared to explore that learning material in your class with your peers and with your fellow. And then once we've had the class together, you'll then go out and extend those skills into the real world. So let's say, for example, in a given class, you've looked at resilience skills or self-awareness skills. You'll then be given specific tasks to go out and practice those skills with your friends, with new people, or even in job interview situations. There's also lots of time to reflect within personal development, and a lot of feedback that I get from the students, or that we all get from students is that they really appreciate the time to reflect with their peers outside of an academic setting. So now I will hand you over to Aman, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about Year 1.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Before I jump into what you're seeing on the slide, I want to take you back to something that I usually begin these kind of sessions with. And this is when I was a fresh MBA graduate. I was quite concerned about would I find a good job? Who would hire me? Would I do well? Questions like that were going on in my head. And there was somebody I knew. He was 8 years my senior, and good, really good to me, kind of like an elder brother figure. And he ran his own business. So one day I was sharing all of this stuff with him, and he said, "Look, I would hire you in a heartbeat." And I asked him why. Why would you hire somebody like me? And he said, "Look, I only look for two things when I'm hiring somebody. Are they, are they intelligent, and do they have a good personality?" And I said, What does that mean? I mean, there's this whole list of skills that we have, and you're kind of distilling it down to these two." And he said, "Look, if you're intelligent, means you have problem-solving ability. And, any problem that one throws at you, you'll be able to work it out, and you'll be able to make progress. And if you have a pleasing personality, that translates into, can you get along with people? Do people like working with you?" And when he said that, it makes sense now. So if you look at what Stephanie was showing you a little while ago, the cognitive intelligences are a measure of your problem-solving ability, right? And the social intelligences or the emotional intelligences have to do with how well can you get along with people? Can you work well with people? So now in that context, if you look at what's on this slide in front of you, it talks about how do you work well in teams. So we'll cover these things in detail in the course. So what is a team? How does it form? What does it take in order to work well in a team? What are interpersonal relationships like? What makes them successful? What kind of communication do you need to become effective at interpersonal relationships and working in teams? What is your communication style? Could it be different from somebody else's? And how do you work with somebody who communicates very differently? I don't know if you've encountered, I mean, if you think about it, you'll realize that maybe you and your parents have a very different communication style, or you and somebody else has a very different communication style. And you may want to ask yourself, okay, let me pay attention to how they communicate and what may be the best way for me to understand them and for them to understand me. Those are the things that we discuss in class, so that because let's face it, you're actually in a very multicultural environment. You've got students from all over the world. Some of them for whom English is a first language. For them, it's a second language. For others, for somebody else, it may be a third language. And then you got to get along and work with these people and make friends with them and make plans with them and go out with them. So how do you adapt? How do you live in a community which is a community of different people? So how do you encounter a new culture in Lisbon, in Portugal in year 1, in France in year 2, and Germany in year 3? How do you deal with all those different immersions? How do you have difficult conversations? Because you may have to have difficult conversations around when you're involved in project work, and then we'll also talk a little bit. So it just says communications 2 here, but this actually covers aspects of public speaking and how do you become better at that, and how do you become better at using storytelling in your communication, and so on and so forth. So that's a little bit about the course. And if you have more questions around some of this around how it'll be taught or what else is there, we can deal with that in the Q&A round. Before I hand over back to you, Stephanie, is there anything else that you'd like me to add on this slide?
No, I think that's great, Aman.
Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. So yes, year 2 in Paris. So you have developed these wonderful social skills with Aman in Lisbon, and they really make sense for your time in Lisbon because everything is very new, as Aman said. And then by the time you come to year 2, by the time you join us here in Paris, the focus is more on yourself and thinking about how to handle your emotions, how to handle and how to understand your emotions, and also how to understand and handle the emotions of other people. In year 2, there's a lot of project work that happens with project-based learning, and there's a lot more opportunity to work with your peers. And so these emotional skills are fundamental to these kind of interpersonal relationships. In year 2, you'll also start to think about things like internships and maybe even next steps. Maybe you can hear the sirens, I don't know, here in Paris. So what we do in year 2 is to support all of that and all of this group work that you'll be doing and all of the thinking and reflecting upon your next steps. So within the emotional intelligence curriculum, we explore 5 building blocks of emotional intelligence. The first part is self-awareness. So as I mentioned, kind of understanding what emotions actually are and how to use the information that emotions bring to us. Then the next part, we move on to motivation and resilience. What motivates us, how to stay motivated, how to stay resilient. Resilience is often one of those core skills that we see that recruiters look for in candidates. So it's important to think about, okay, I think I'm a resilient person, but how do I speak about that? So these are skills that we practice in our class together. The third part of year 2 is a community outreach initiative. We do a lot of introspection in year 2, so it's important to mix that introspection with a bit of outward focus. So we do some work with an NGO in Paris. This past academic year, we worked with an NGO called Serve the City. Some of you might be familiar with it. We go out and we work with a specific community in Paris, and the students choose different initiatives to work with these communities. Initiatives like working in a soup kitchen, preparing meals, handing out the meals, playing football with refugees, asylum seekers. There's also language and culture exchanges. So this is a very experiential part of the course, and it's a part of the course that students really enjoy because it's a moment for us to go out and really connect with Paris in a different way and also think about emotional intelligence in a pretty different way. How do I show empathy to other people who might need me to show up differently? Then we move on to stress management and balance. So, stress is a normal part of life. It's a very normal part of being a student. So we look at ways to handle that stress, ways to think about how to face the stress and what those typical stresses are for each of us so that we can achieve a sense of balance. And then by the end of year 2, we start to talk about decision making, how to make good decisions. Are there good decisions? And then that leads us into year 3. And I will hand over to Philippe now to talk about year 3.
Thank you, Stephanie. And before I give an overview of year 3 in the personal development track, I would like to take a moment to mention my other role as student career advisor in our career center. So alongside my colleague, Catherine Ellis, who is the head of the career development and based in Paris, I work directly with primarily year 3 students on critical topics like finding an internship, career pathing and job applications, getting into top master's programs, and sometimes all of the above in the same conversation. Whether it's in one-on-one meetings, webinars, workshops, I'm available to all students regardless of what degree program they're in. So I just wanted to just pop that in to let you know that those kinds of topics, regardless of open bachelors, double bachelors, and so on and so forth, the terms can be a bit overwhelming. That I serve all of our year 3 students in that capacity. And since there's some overlap with the things that the Career Center is doing and the third year of personal development, I thought it'd be a good time to call out the Career Center just generally. But back to my personal development hat, the year begins with career readiness, where we explore and practice the fundamentals of preparing for life after Forward College. We know that effectively communicating the wealth of skills and experiences you will have accumulated during your time at Forward College is hard, but is so important, which is why we focus on conveying your undergraduate experience as a powerful story to employers or grad schools and so on. And since not every job is the same, nor is every master's program the same, we'll explore how to select skills and experiences that will present the most compelling argument for why you are the strongest candidate for that job, that master's program, and so forth. We'll also examine the importance of both in-person and online networking, discuss new and creative ways to stand out, and you'll have a chance to apply these tactics yourself. We'll also dedicate time to understanding how platforms like LinkedIn actually work and how to increase your effectiveness on them. To round it out, we'll take on interviews, common questions, strategies for formulating successful answers, and how to show up and present your authentic self all make up this portion of the term. Now, as I mentioned, these are topics that I work on with students in my capacity as student career advisor, but the personal development track allows us to go into far greater detail on a regular, sustained basis. So something to consider there. In the second half of the year, we shift our focus away from explicit career readiness to topics no less essential for work, postgraduate programs, and beyond. We'll dive into influence and negotiation strategies to understand how negotiations actually work so you can conduct them successfully in both personal and professional settings. We'll get philosophical, exploring ethical concepts such as utilitarianism and absolutism to understand how they apply to all aspects of our lives. And we'll ask what their limitations might be when put to the test in the real world. We'll study decision-making frameworks, as Stephanie mentioned, which also occurs in year 2, with an emphasis here on how they can be used to assist in the types of decisions soon-to-be graduates actually face. Maybe the cherry on top of all of this is this all takes place at the CIC Innovation Campus, which is the facility that hosts the Forward College campus here in Berlin. And if you don't know, it's a co-working space home to over 150 scale-ups and startups from across the Berlin business community. With its own regular rotating selection of networking events, the Innovation Campus is the perfect place for year 3 students to make connections and see the world of modern work in action. In fact, many of our students found their internships with companies from inside that very building. Overall, year 3 emphasizes skills that impact your life directly, making them, in a word, practical. This requires a highly interactive classroom experience, rich in conversation and engagement. And as I tell all of my students, you only get out as much as you put in.
Thanks so much, Philippe. Perhaps just before you move on to the 360, I was wondering, because we have Clarence here, Clarence, perhaps would you like to add anything about your experience with personal development in year 1 or year 2?
Yeah, of course. I think both of you mentioned most of the the experiences, but what stood out for me most in each year, I'd say in year one was we had this long activity called The Story Unfolds, where we did a big role play about a difficult conversation. So this was actually really interesting because we had an actor that was playing a student that was having some issues in a team assignment. And so we had to kind of resolve this issue as a class. So that was very interesting for difficult conversation, whether that's in any kind of team. And year two, I think, Stephanie, you touched well on that, but what I enjoyed most was the community outreach section. Yeah, so the volunteering was very insightful. I think it was very nice to be able to actually go out in Paris and not just forward related, but also interact with other communities, whether that's the refugees of Paris or just the people that also participate in those volunteering activities across Paris. That was a very nice experience to me.
Thanks so much, Clarence.
And let me continue with, I think, another highly unique aspect of Forward College. And it's known as 360-degree coaching sessions. Something that students do every year they're with Forward College. So in year one, year two, and year three, this process takes place. 360-degree feedback coaching sessions are a pretty common practice in the modern workplace. Maybe some of the parents, caregivers on the line are familiar with them from their own work life, but they're not that common in higher education. Almost, they're very, very difficult to find. The process involves multiple pieces, but to put it simply, students evaluate themselves across roughly 20 dimensions derived from the categories of deep skills that Stephanie mentioned earlier. So inside of cognitive intelligence, there are things like analytical thinking, or inside social emotional intelligence is this idea of networking. Inside of practical intelligence is project management. So each of those larger families of ideas have smaller skills within them. And so students are evaluating themselves, their perceived strength across a great number of these. And students are also anonymously evaluated across those same dimensions by their teaching fellows, classmates, friends, and even family. And these results are then compiled into a report that is shared with students, again, everything anonymously. And then with the help of a coach and over the course of 2-hour-long meetings, students use the report to understand their areas of strength, their areas that they might need to develop further, and any potential blind spots. Are there places where they're either over or underestimating their strengths in particular areas? For what it's worth, myself, Stephanie, and Aman all serve as coaches in this process. Then, after this initial conversation takes place in the second session, students build an individual development plan, which serves as a roadmap for working on areas that the 360-degree feedback session has brought to light. Again, highly unusual to find this in a higher education setting, but not just because it's something students might see in the world of work, but also for the fundamental value that it provides. We really believe in this process. Pausing to reflect on these essential skills and developing plans to improve in the areas we find meaningful and important is at the core of what we do at Forward College. And so by incorporating the 360-degree feedback process, we're making sure that we're not going soft on these so-called soft skills and really putting them at the center of every year for the growth and development of our students. And I believe the next slide is just an example of the kind of output that is produced. Hopefully your screen is much bigger and higher resolution than mine is. But nonetheless, it's a very detailed report that students have the opportunity to reflect on with their coach in those sessions. So something that we've really invested a lot of time and energy in building and maintaining for the benefit of our students. I did see a question come through in the chat. I didn't get a chance to see it, but perhaps we can hold that till the end.
We can go over it. We can go over it right now. So this is Sarah, who is joining us from Norway, and she asks, how strong is the career support for internships and first jobs?
Yep. That is an excellent question, Sarah. So myself in year 3 in Berlin, and my colleague Catherine, as I mentioned, in year 2 in Paris, both function in the student career development and advisor role. And with that comes the students in years 1, 2, and 3 to meet with us in one-on-one sessions where we can discuss professional aspirations, professional goals, both near term and long term, and take those in combination with your particular degree program and the interests that are developing in your time at Forward, and use those as the starting point for a conversation about what are the types of organizations and the types of roles or positions that would be of interest to you, a good fit, and good places to begin looking. And so again, you have us available to meet one-on-one. We also host regular webinars around various themes, whether that's selecting a master's program or polishing your cover letter, or the latest networking tips, as those things are kind of constantly evolving, especially as technology evolves. So that's another method of support around internships and first jobs. And then within the PD track itself, the more intensive, more deeper exploration of personal values, personal goals, personal and professional aspirations is also part of this career support that is being offered across the 3 years of the personal development track. So we have an ever-growing network of organizations that our students have interned with, as well as our alum have gone on to work for. And whenever is necessary, we can tap into those. But I will say, with regards to the internships especially, students have such a broad range of unique interests and aspirations that those are very, very self-directed, and we want them to be that way. We offer support kind of from the side. So students overwhelmingly are able to land those mandatory internships that might be part of the double bachelor's or bachelor's plus program completely on their own, completely independently. And sometimes it might be the case that a student reaches out to a teaching fellow who they've developed a relationship with, and maybe there's a connection there that is sparked by their being at Forward College. But it's both the internships and the first jobs are highly individualized and highly independent processes, and we want them to be that way. It's part of developing the skill set needed to succeed at that in the long term. It's a test of resilience and time management and things of that sort. So again, we offer support from the sidelines, and our students are very, very successful with that level of support. I hope that addresses your question, Sarah. I'm happy to go into greater detail one-on-one and give you my email. We could talk further if that will be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippe. So after all of these very valuable insights into personal development, and really I'd like to emphasize here that this is not something that you'd usually find in traditional higher education settings. So if you look at your journey from the moment that you were born until you get to this point where you are applying for college, you might have gotten these classes when you were little to learn about emotions and how to deal with them. But then it's widely recognized that, okay, you are done. Now you deal with your emotions and with the world yourself. But here, this is almost like a course on how to insert yourself into a community, how to understand yourself and your emotions, and then how to position yourself in a way that allows you to get to where you want to be. So truly very important and a great asset for our students. Now we will go over our 3 campuses and the student experience here with Clarence's feedback. So Clarence, take it away.
Yeah. So as you most likely know, each year is a different city. So year one, we're in Lisbon, then we go to Paris, and then we go to Berlin. And for this, we each have our own campus in the city, and Ford helps you with student accommodation. So there's provided accommodation each year with a room that's booked for you. So we're going to go through those. So in year one, in Lisbon, our campus is actually in the very center of Lisbon, almost in the touristy area. It's a very nice location to be in. That's actually the building you can see. We have two learning centers. The first one is Soriano, which is actually a new learning center. It's very big, also very central. I haven't had the luck to go there, unfortunately, but I've heard amazing things from it. Um, and then our second learning center, this is a terrace. So we have a terrace in the learning centers. There's a meditation room, as you saw afterwards. There's also common study rooms. It's a very big area where you'll have your classes, independent study, but also time to socialize with other people. This is our second learning center, Flores, which is the original one. Also has a meditation room, very PD adequate, and some common areas for the students to work. We also have a co-working space, which is very nice. It's based in the student residence, which is a bit in the outskirts of Lisbon. It's in Chior, it's called. And this is a huge place just for us to do our learning cells, study independently, but also have like community activities. Exactly. So in my year, we had a Friendsgiving, we had like Christmas parties there. It's a very nice space for us to have as students. And it's in the student residence. So as I was saying, Shior is the name of the student's residence, and you each have an individual room with your own bathroom, and then you can choose whether to share a kitchen or not. Um, it's kind of like a hotel, so you each have your room, and almost all of the Ford students live there. So it's strongly encouraged, but it's also very nice to meet people, start knowing your friends, the people you're going to spend 3 years with. And it's a very nice environment to be in and cook together, socialize. Student life in Lisbon is also amazing. It's very sunny, nice weather. The people are very nice and friendly too. We even have 2 weeks of induction, they call it. So at the very first 2 weeks of Forward College in Lisbon, you'll have kind of time to adapt. So the first week is going to be very much about discovering the city, the people you're going to be spending 3 years with. So there's a day where we go surfing, there's a day where we have a full tour of the city. And then the second week is more academic in the sense where you'll have your first class of everything. So it's more about meeting your teachers, discovering the learning center, um, and the co-working and the fellows. Moving on to Paris, that's where I am right now. You can see my background. We actually, there's a question. Wait, actually, maybe I'll answer the question about Lisbon before we move to Paris. Um, mm, mm, mm. No, sorry, Amman. Yes, that's very true. It's super easy. So it's like unlike Paris. In Paris, you actually live and study in the same campus. In Lisbon and Berlin, there are different places, but indeed, Amman, in Lisbon, it's a direct line. It's literally in front of the housing and it's in front of the learning center, and it's 20 to 30 minutes. It's very efficient. So in Paris, we're actually in a big campus that's called CIUP, and it's a huge residence for students around the world. It's very international. It's mainly for master students and PhD students, but we actually get privileged housing there, I guess. Um, it's a very big space. If you go to the next pictures, it has a lot of facilities. So whether that's, oh no, first the campus, sorry. The Learning Campus is also in the campus, like in the CIUP. So we have our own classrooms there. We're actually the only university that has their classes there. Um, but most people you'll find will be just living there and going in other universities. So this is a library. It's a very big and nice Parisian library. You get access to it if you live there, but you also get access to many facilities, as I was saying. So you have a lot of sports, You have a swimming pool, you have like 8 tennis courts, you have a lot of extracurriculars too, whether that's music, arts. That's very, very broad. For the residents, you actually have many different houses on the campus. We have the choice between three, each having different specificities, like whether you share a kitchen and a bathroom, or you share only one of the two, or you share none. So that's very nice for you to choose between what you want most. And then moving on to the student life, I mean, Paris is an amazing city. It's bigger than Lisbon, but that also means you have many more options of what to do. The culture there is amazing for everything that's museum related. It's a very rich city, I would say. And then for Berlin, I haven't been yet, but I've heard very good echoes from it. As Philippe was saying, our learning center is based in, I'll answer that question afterwards. The learning center is actually sort of a startup incubator with offices of many startups and scale-ups. And we actually get to have our classrooms there. So the learning, maybe we can go to the next pictures. So yeah, it's called CIC. It's a big place. You have a cafeteria, we'll have our classes there. You also have conferences, which Philippe was talking about, which I'm very excited about. Even like work related. The student accommodations in Berlin are also a bit more spread. We have the choice between four, so it's more diverse. They're a bit all spread around Berlin, but mainly pretty close to the learning center. And so you really have the choice between, I know the most popular one is shared flats of 3 people. And so it's more towards, yeah, shared flats than student residence, like in second and first year. But you also have access to student residence if you want to choose that option. And moving to the student life in Berlin, it's a huge city. It's apparently very international. There's a lot of parks. A lot of people bike in Berlin too. It's famous for its rave scene, and it's very culturally diverse. And I've also heard that there's a crazy amount of startups that are based in Berlin. So that's also nice for the business side.
Can I just add one thing quickly about the Berlin setup? Just to
Course.
kind of piggyback on what you just mentioned, Clarence, and as well what I shared. So the CIC, the Innovation Campus, you're absolutely right. Berlin is home to many, many startups, sometimes jokingly referred to as Silicon Alley. And the CIC is one of the main centers of that scene. And so for students who are thinking about where they will be headed after they graduate, being exposed to that there, and then also that network that puts them in the orbit of, is incredibly valuable for those who go out and take it up. The CIC every Thursday hosts a networking event that is themed around some topic as it relates to tech and business. The most recent one last week was around food scarcity and tech. So very, very topical topics being addressed. It's completely free of charge. Students are, of course, welcome. It's an amazing opportunity to kind of see how that world operates. So I couldn't think of a better place for us to be.
Then
Okay, thank
answering
you.
Sarah's question, half of it is for me, and the other half will probably be for Stephanie, I believe. My favorite city so far, it's actually quite hard because I really enjoyed Lisbon. It was an amazing year for me. But I do really like Paris, and I'm very sad to be leaving soon. I think they're both nice for very different reasons. But I'm sure I'll enjoy Berlin just as much.
Okay, thank you very much for your insights. And okay, yes, the remaining of Sarah's question. How do you measure the students' growth in leadership and other skills? And what is the biggest transformation students experience during the program?
Yes, great questions. Thank you so much, Sarah. So how do we measure the students' growth? We have, like academic programs, we have the skills are mapped to learning objectives that are specific to each part of our individual programs. So students will be aware of the learning objectives at the beginning of the program. And then in terms of grading, in personal development, like in the academic program, students are graded on performance and engagement. So performance, it's very hard to measure performance within the personal development program. So we have quite a specific grading framework. Now, grading happens in different ways, or I should say the types of formats that we give to students vary quite a bit. So we have quizzes, we have reflections where students are invited to submit a written reflection or sometimes a recorded reflection based upon the skills that they've explored. There are also presentations and role plays. So the way that we kind of measure this, the performance varies across the 3 years. And the next question that you asked was, what is the biggest transformation students experience during the program? That's such a great question. My initial reaction to that, Sarah, would be, it depends on the student. Sometimes we have students who are fairly introverted and who come to Forward College feeling a little shy, feeling a little hesitant about joining in or putting their hand up in class. And then what we observe is that little by little, these students begin to gain in confidence and begin to speak up and to participate. So that's just one example. We have other examples of students who, for example, have a job interview, and we help them prepare for the job interview in the personal development classes. So we look at behavioural questions together, and then they come back after the interview and report that, yes, the behavioural questions really help them in their real life job interviews. But I think mainly what is the most meaningful for the students is just being able to share their experiences authentically with their peers. There's lots of opportunity within personal development to share your experiences, your perspectives, how you feel about things, how you interpret things. And I think one thing that students learn throughout their 3 years is that they're not alone, and that's their peers, see things pretty similarly, or if not, that's okay, and that, it's okay sometimes to see things differently. What is important is to try to understand how we each see things and to try to be able to explain clearly why it is that you feel certain things, and why it is that you perceive certain things as you do.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie, and thank you, Sarah, for your questions. Just before we wrap up, a quick overview of the application process. So as I told you in the beginning, we are currently on our last wave of applications. Here you can see the academic requirements for some of the most widely known diplomas, but of course, if you are completing any other diploma, just check our website to confirm your eligibility. So in order to apply, please don't worry if you haven't graduated yet. You can apply with predicted grades and also with the academic transcripts from your past 2 terms, preferably the past 2 years of study, so that we can get a good view of your performance. Additionally, you will also be asked to submit a proof of English proficiency. If you don't have it by the time you apply, there's no worries, because you can take the tests and submit it until the end of July. Regarding extracurriculars, we also ask you to let us know what you do aside from classes. So, any projects you're involved in, sports, music, or any other such activities that you find relevant. And then we also ask for a reflective essay where you can tell us a bit about your motivations for applying to your degrees of choice, why you'd like to study at Forward, and how these extracurricular activities contributed to the person that you are today. Next, if your application is deemed eligible and promising, you will be invited for an admissions interview. This is an online 30 minutes interview with a member of our team that will go over what you wrote in your application form, mainly regarding your extracurricular and your motivations. After this, as you can see here, once you get invited for an admissions interview, you will also be attributed to a student ambassador, which will help you out through the entire process. They can give you tips for the interview, and you can also chat to them about expectations for when you start and any questions you may have about courses or any degree in particular. Around 2 weeks after your admissions interview, you will receive a final decision. So whether you receive an admissions offer or not. In case you haven't graduated yet, you will receive a conditional offer, meaning that your offer will become final once you actually graduate and fulfill all the remaining conditions stated in your offer. And after that, you have 2 weeks to complete your enrollment. All of this is fully detailed on our website, and you also receive email communication with all sorts of details. Regarding tuition, here you have the amounts for this upcoming academic year. Please be aware that there are differences for EU and international students outside the EU. There are also several financial aid options available. You will receive access to the financial aid application form if you mark the option that you wish to be considered for financial aid in your application form. This form becomes available once and if you are invited for an interview, and here is your best opportunity to be as detailed as possible regarding financial needs, regarding the composition of your family, and truly what you will or won't be able to spend during these 3 years of studies with us. Then the committee will meet at regular intervals and will decide what's the best type of financial aid for your specific situation. So once again, a reminder that if you want to join us in September of this year, you must apply by May 31st, so only a couple of weeks left. It's important to remember to submit your transcripts from the past 2 years. It's quite common for students to submit their application without sending the transcripts, which then leads us to having to hassle you a bit with emails. So if everything is sent at once, then the process is much smoother. And regarding questions, we are now running a bit out of time, but we thank you very much for your presence here, for joining us. Thank you, Sarah, for your questions. And should anyone else have questions, please feel free to send them to whichever of us here from the recruitment or admissions team. And once again, thanks very much for your presence, and see you soon.